Brandon from WX Law, and today we're going to debunk some myths about bankruptcy. So myth number one, people who file bankruptcy are irresponsible. Now I'm not going to say that that's not true, but I'm going to say it's less true than you think, because most of the time when people file, they've had a life event, whether that's they lost a spouse, because if they're living, and if it's a husband and wife and they're normal folks and they're both working and they got 2 or 3 kids, they need 2 incomes to support their family. If one spouse gets sick or one spouse passes away, then that's going to hurt, and they may not be able to afford their bills, so they need to reorganize. They need to restructure, and they need to get ahead of things. And typically, creditors aren't that nice about working out good deals for them, so they kind of end up, bankruptcy is their best option. If you file bankruptcy, you'll lose everything, including your home. Not true. Now, while talking about this myth, I'm going to talk about another one, because some people come in here expecting to file and keep everything and not paid for it. This kind of goes to secured and unsecured. Depending on your income, you may not have to pay any of your unsecured debts back. Your secured debts, if you want to keep the thing, you got to pay for the thing. Because remember, if you don't pay for it, they still have the right to come take it. So you don't have to pay it back, and they can come take it. But if you want to keep it, you got to pay for it. So you won't. But if you want to keep it, you can. But you won't lose your house if you pay for it. You won't lose your car if you pay for it. Sometimes, even like with cars, we can get better deals for people. We can lower the amount they owe in the car, and they still get to keep their car. And there's exemptions to the bankruptcy code, and if you fit within those exemptions, you lose nothing. And most people that file bankruptcy fit within those exemptions, and so they file. They keep everything they want. Maybe get rid of a car they want to pay for anymore, but literally they keep every single thing they want, and they can let everything else go. Next myth: your credit will be ruined if you file bankruptcy. This is one of the best ones. And the example I always use to kind of explain this is, let's say you had 2 people that you were going to loan money to. One person, and we'll just use a standard scenario, one person makes $40,000 a year, has $40,000 in credit card debt, and could file bankruptcy at any time. Okay? The other person makes $40,000 a year, has $0 in credit card debt, they just filed bankruptcy, and they can't file bankruptcy for 8 more years. Which one of those people would you rather loan money to? Okay, and typically it's the second person. Another couple things that happen. This is where another reason that debt settlement companies aren't that good, because I don't know if you watched the previous video, but they don't pay your bills and you get those dings on your credit. When you file bankruptcy, everything that is negative on your credit has to go off. Now the bankruptcy does go on, but all your negative stuff goes off. So those missed payments don't stay on. If you missed a payment, it's not going to stay on there for 7 years. It's going to disappear. Now, what does that really mean? The Federal Reserve did a study, and about 6 months after a person filed, the average person's credit score went up somewhere around 90 to 95 points. So literally, most people file bankruptcy, and within 6 months, their credit score has gone up almost 100 points. So that's really what happens. That's really how it works. And so, we just want people to understand that. And typically, too, if it is time for you to file, your credit's probably not the best, so it's not really going to hurt that much. But just want to let you know that. And the last myth that we're going to debunk is people file bankruptcy to get out of paying what they owe creditors. And this kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier. They're secured versus unsecured, and then there's your income. Now, if you're an average Arkansan and you have credit card debt, you are not going to have to pay it back unless you have unsecured debt. If you have now, if you make $300,000 a year, you're probably going to have to pay back some unsecured debt. So it kind of depends. There's a best interest test, and they step through it. But you'll look, when you file bankruptcy for somebody, you have to list all of your income, all of your expenses, all of your assets, and all of your debts. And you run through a big formula, and you figure out. That's something else to know. It's super important. We know what you're going to have to pay and what you're going to have to pay back before you ever file. So you can kind of get a look at that, get that all figured out, and then decide whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea. Does that make sense? But generally, for a lot of people, every now and then it's not good for somebody because of the debt they owed. Like, for instance, you got to pay back taxes, got to pay back houses you want to keep, cars you want to keep. You have to pay back criminal fines. You have to pay back any money that you owe the Department of Workforce Services for unemployment. So there are categories that you must pay back. You must pay back child support. So it depends on exactly what your situation is. It may or may not be able to help. But that's why we like to look at everything and tell somebody exactly what's going on and go from there. Those are some myths about bankruptcy. And if you have any more questions, feel free to click the orange button and let us know, and we'll try to get those answered. Thanks.